Hi, and welcome to Stamp with Ginny. Today I'm going to share this fun shadow box card that stands all on its own. I'm using the Greatest Journey bundle of products to create this fun fold card. So let me set this aside and I'll show you how I created it. Okay, I'm going to start by scoring my cardstock, and I'm going to score this at the 1/2 inch mark, the 1 inch mark, the 4.5 inch mark, and the 5 inch mark. And then I'm going to bring in my thick basic white and do the same thing. I've got my scoring done, and I can set aside my scoreboard and cut the center out with my die. Okay, I've cut my layering circle out of the center panel here between the score lines, and while I was at my Stampin' Cut and Emboss, I also cut out my little jogger. I'm ready to start stamping now, and so I've got my basic white back panel and my strip for my sentiment. I'm going to start with my sentiment strip simply by placing it into my banner Pick Your Punch. I've cut this a little long, so this is easy to do. I can flip it over, line it up, and punch. And then I'm ready to stamp. Okay, for this project, I'm going to do my stamping of the sentiment in Starry Sky, and I'm going to ink up my sentiment here and stamp it right onto my strip, close to the end that I've got my flag into. Then I'm going to bring in my basic white panel, and I'm going to pick up my Coastal Cabana ink. I'm going to start off on the edge here that you're not going to see, and I'm simply going to swoosh some color across my panel. I want a little bit of variation here because this is going to be the sky, and so I want it to have a very organic feel. Then I'm going to pick up my blending brush with my garden green, and I'm going to do the same process along the bottom here. I'm just blending in a little bit of color so that the white isn't so bright. Now that I have that done, I'm going to bring in my tree image here, and I am going to stamp the first row of trees along the bottom. And you'll see here why I put that garden green along the bottom. It kind of fills in that white space by my trees. And once I've got that first row in, I'm going to bring in my image, stamp off, and place a second image in the background. I've stamped twice. This first image is going to be slightly lighter, and then the next one is even lighter. I'm going to do that again. And as you can see, I picked up edges here from where the cardstock was and where the score line was, which is why you want to re-ink, stamp off, and stamp whenever you're going over an edge and or a score line, so that you don't get this ink line on your project. I've got my stamping done, and I'm ready to start building my shadow box card. I'm going to bring in my tear and tape, and I'm going to run a strip along each 1/2 inch section on the outer edge on this back panel. I'm going to put it close to the score line because I want that to be nice and tight. And then I'm going to use my little tool here. You can use a old credit card or gift card to do this also. And I'm going to run this down and tear. This just gives you a straighter edge and makes it a little easier. And then you can burnish. I've got that done, and I'm ready to fold my score lines. So I'm going to fold back, fold, and then I'm going to use my bone folder to do the same thing. Now, I like to go back and forth on this so that it moves freely and it's really easy to fold and pop up when you get it out of your envelope. So you'll want to do that again. And I'm going to repeat on the card front. I've got all my scoring done, and I like to assemble my card front before I put my shadow box together. So I'm going to fold this down flat, and I'm going to bring in my sentiment piece. Now I'm going to decide how long I want this sentiment piece, and I want it right about here. So I'm going to bring my paper snips in and trim just in a straight line. I've got that, and I'm going to set the background behind this simply so that you can see where you're at and what the sentiment is going to look like. And I'm going to put that down, about here. And then I'm going to bring my little jogger in, and I'm going to put him, let's see, like so. I'm going to raise that up slightly. This is really personal preference, and you can add that the way you'd like. And then I'm going to bring in my multi-purpose adhesive, and I'm simply going to add a little adhesive on my runner's feet so that it's a nice strong adhesive that'll keep him in place. You can also use glue dots and or our fine tip glue pen. There we go. And I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive here on the very edge because that's the only place I want it adhered. And I'm going to adhere that down. Now I added adhesive being very careful not to place any adhesive where it was going to attach to my back panel. Once that's dry, I can pull off my strips and start adhering. I've got this first side down, and so I'm going to line up the corners and the edges carefully and adhere in place. And I'm going to repeat that same process on the other side. Now with tear and tape, you need to be very careful where you're adhering. If you adhere in the wrong place, use your heat tool and lift that adhesive carefully. Now that I've got that done, you can see it'll go into my envelope flat, but when it's received, and this is why I like to do that scoring in both directions, I'm going to pop this up and fold. And I'm folding this last time just to make it easy and the memory of the cardstock so that it'll spring up. So there you go. It'll stand up nicely on your mantle or tabletop, and it sends a beautiful message to somebody special. I hope you've enjoyed this fun shadow box card using the Greatest Journey bundle of products found in the mini catalog. And of course, if you'd like any of these products, feel free to stop by my online store. You can get there from my blog, Stamp with Jini. Thanks for joining me.